May I have a motion to reopen the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 special meeting for May 24th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please, Julia?
Mr. Burns,
Here.
Ms. Zinser,
Here.
Dr. Chapbacher, Dr. Benson,
Here.
Ms. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Noble,
Here.
Mr. Weinbrenner.
He is having audio trouble, it says, but I think he is here.
Good.
I know how to do
Motion
that.
carries.
He just logged off and is logging right back on, so maybe come back to him.
Yep, motion carries, Shani. We can keep going.
Okay, thank you. I have a brief president's report that I would like to start with, and then we will move into public comment. All right, you're all gonna have to bear with me on this one. Shayla, you're in silhouette right now. I kind of wish I was too, so that people couldn't really see my face, because I have a message that I think is going to be hard for me to get through. Good evening. We have convened this special board meeting tonight to review the district's plans for the Lake Forest High School 2021-2022 school year. We look forward to learning more from Dr. Holland and her leadership team as we prepare for a return to 5-day, fully in-person learning in the fall. So more to come on that in just a few minutes. But tonight is significant for another reason as well. This is Dr. Shayla Holland's final District 115 board meeting, and with that in mind, I can't believe I'm already getting emotional. I haven't even gotten to the good part. With that in mind, I would like to share a few thoughts, not only as board president, but as a parent and a community member. Dr. Holland joined the district as Lake Forest High School principal in 2015. Since then, our district has grown and benefited as she has worked tirelessly to create and expand opportunities for learning, self-discovery, inclusion, critical thinking, and understanding among all Lake Forest High School students. Dr. Holland has fostered a culture that recognizes, respects, and sees value in every individual. She is a caring and thoughtful leader who listens deeply before rendering decisions. Dr. Holland has a tireless work ethic and a relentless commitment to excellence. And although Dr. Holland is award-winning, being named the 2019 Educational Leader of the Year by the University of Illinois Chicago College of Education, and receiving the 2021 Lake Region Principal of the Year Award by the Illinois Principals Association, Dr. Holland prefers to shine a light on others, celebrating the unique gifts of her staff and her students. During her 6 years of service to our district, Dr. Holland has shown up for us in the most important ways, as a curricular leader, as a social emotional advocate, and a voice for inclusion. She removed our former track system, which at one time limited student participation in advanced placement coursework, and allowed all students to stretch themselves as far as they wanted to go. And because of this, thousands of Lake Forest High School scouts have found new ways to soar. Despite her deep devotion to the learning opportunities of our students and our teachers, Dr. Holland somehow found time to support our students outside of the classroom as well. She attended their extracurricular competitions, applauded them from the audience during their arts performances, and even stepped onto the field to cheer them on as athletes. Whether or not everyone realizes it at this moment, in some way, Dr. Holland has touched all of us. She has made Lake Forest High School a stronger, kinder, more thoughtful, and better school than we were 6 years ago. So, as we say goodbye, I would like to thank you, Shayla, as a mom, as a community member, and as a member of the District 115 Board of Education. We have been blessed to be a part of your life for these past 6 years, and we wish you the very best as you move forward in your career. Your future is surely bright, as is ours, because of the time you gave to us. Best of luck, Shayla. You will be greatly missed. So with that, I would like to, thank you. I would like to open up the meeting to public comment. Julia, are there any members of the public who would like to address the board?
There are, and I will be right back with our first caller, Todd.
Thank you. Okay, I held it together better than I thought I might. So
Very good.
I'm like the one that can, well up at a Hallmark commercial,
That was,
So-
better, that was better than Dave.
Todd, you are on with the board.
Hello, everyone. This is Todd Nahigian, Korea manager. I am absolutely thrilled to be able to speak about my friend and colleague, Shayla Holland. I definitely am sad to see you go, Shayla, but I wanted to say a few things that just meant a lot to me throughout the years that you've been here. I remember the day we met and you told me about how you just finished filming the America to Me TV series and how you felt like you had just jumped up out of Oak Park River Forest to get to Lake Forest. And I saw an enthusiasm, an excitement, and an energy that I was so excited to work with. And what I feel is that throughout the years that we have worked together, you really have embodied the values that we extend at Croya. The acceptance, the respect, the empathy, and the accountability that you've provided and led has been wonderful. With acceptance, you first arrived in Lake Forest and came to visit us at Croya to meet and engage the youth in a genuine and approachable way. From that day on, we felt supported by you, accepted, respected, and as a true partner in the work that we've been doing for the 6 years. As far as respect goes, you're an amazing advocate for the students who respects everyone. You always put them first. You're smart, talented, and accomplished, and it's been an honor to work with you. As far as empathy goes, you and I have had some great discussions about some very difficult topics. I grew in my understanding for who you are and what you wanted to accomplish at Lake Forest High School, but even more, what you wanted to accomplish as a person. I really appreciated you introducing me to courageous conversations about race and being patient with me as I learned many new things. And as accountability goes, they always want to know, what have you done? When you leave a place, did you leave it better and stronger than when you arrived? And I can wholeheartedly say, as I'm just getting a little choked up, that this place is better and stronger, and you will be missed for a long, long time. We hope you keep in touch with us at Croya, and I wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. I don't even know if I'm allowed to respond, but thank you.
Of course, you can respond whenever you'd like.
I'll be right back with our next caller, Gail. Gail, you are on with the board.
Hi, thank you, Board of Ed, for this opportunity. Jenny, you're killing me. As some of you know me, I come in front of you tonight as a Lake Forest High School alumnus, a fellow educator and administrator, but mostly a parent. Dear Shayla, it's difficult to put into words all that you've done for our students of Lake Forest High School, as well as our community. From the moment you stepped into the halls of this school, you began to identify areas for improvement, all with an eye for student experience. We are all aware it can be difficult to move a school and a community steeped in tradition off the block and push us to see how we can be better for our students. Attendance policies, the daily schedule, and building safety are all operational, but are so integral in the healthy functioning of our school. We cannot underestimate the tactical navigation needed for change in these procedures, which you seem to implement so effortlessly. But beyond what I believe is the core of your vision, which has been felt by every child who enters the building, is your call, in your words, to seeing and centering all the students and creating an educational experience that considers what they need to flourish. Your work in inclusive practices has pushed our staff to examine old ways and make each student feel like they belong. A couple of years ago, we had Shayla help move our work at New Trier High School in the area of MTSS. Her confident and vulnerable presentation helped direct us on a path to better serve our students. As we affectionately still refer to this as the Shayla meeting, she taught us how to not make excuses for the roadblocks in front of us and why we have to keep asking the good questions about how we can do better for our students. Shayla, you are one of those people who walked into my life and changed it. You not only made me a stronger educator, you changed the way I lead. As it is said, brave leaders never stay silent about the hard things. I am hopeful and excited for your final call to action about the work that is in front of us as a school community in the area of equity and diversity. You are a role model for all the young eyes who have watched your kindness, directions, and strength seep into the walls of the school. I feel so fortunate my kids have gotten to benefit from your hard work and feel each day innately what you saw as important. My freshman sons came home after a nervous first day this year, so excited, and they just kept saying, everyone's so nice, friendly, and they made me feel good. They came home wanting more, excited to engage, and feeling safer to take risks. What more could a parent ask for? So, dear Shayla, I wish I could be there in person, looking you in the eye when I say I'm so excited for you, for Naperville, for those kids and families as you take another district by storm. I know we'll be watching you and smiling as you continue to spread the good work of what the future of progressive education should be, one where all students can grow and strive. Good luck. You'll be missed. I have no doubt we'll be reading about you in Washington someday. Please know we'll be cheering and waving and always claiming you as a scout. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank
That
you,
was
Gail.
great.
Our next caller will be Suzanne. Suzanne, you are on with the board.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Sands, and I am the parent of a ninth grader and a senior at Lake Forest High School. I am also currently serving as the chair of the Lake Forest High School Foundation and the president of the NSSED Leadership Council. In all of these roles, I have had the opportunity to get to know Dr. Shayla Holland over her time leading Lake Forest High School. Dr. Holland has been a transformative leader at our high school. Her dedication to both students and education, along with her deep understanding of both, have made her an outstanding principal. Her strength, ingenuity, courage, resilience, and professionalism make her an extraordinary educational leader. One aspect of her leadership that has stood out to me from the very beginning is the way she connects with students and always goes out of her way to listen to their voices, reaching out and encouraging all students to provide input into decisions about their school. Her willingness to be featured in talent show videos, sharing her fun side with the students and our community is another aspect of her leadership that made a positive impression early on. Her deep respect for students drives her to go above and beyond because she cares so much about them as developing human beings. She is an unwavering advocate for equity and access for all students and has worked with her staff and the parent volunteer community to put in place so many structures that support students academically, socially, and emotionally during her tenure here. She is an outstanding educator, a deep thinker, a problem solver, and a brilliant communicator. Being in meetings with her has been a joy because she always brings her A game. She has been incredibly supportive of the Lake Forest High School Foundation during her time at the high school and appreciates the role our organization plays in supporting educational excellence and innovation at LFHS. Her positive impact will be felt for many years to come. I am grateful that my oldest two have benefited from her leadership. I wish her the best in all she does going forward and know that she will continue to grow, lead, and do great things in her next role. That said, I will miss her terribly, and I'm also sad to see her leave. Dr. Holland, thank you for your leadership, the love you've shown the young people of our community, and the example you've set for them as a person living life with purpose, courage, and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Our next caller will be Jenny. Jenny, you are on with the board.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Sturpin, and I'm the Director of Special Ed at Lake Forest High School. This is definitely difficult for me to do, to summarize Dr. Shayla's impact and accomplishments in 2 minutes or less. But here I go. The following quote by John Maxwell highlights Dr. Holland's leadership. People do not care how much you know how much you care. Dr. Holland cares about every student and staff member, and she demonstrates that ethic of care in all of her interactions and experiences in her personal life and her professional life at Lake Forest High School, which has shaped and enhanced the culture, the morale, and the overall functioning of Lake Forest High School. It is no surprise that Dr. Holland was named Principal of the Year. Thank you, Shayla, for modeling day in and day out what it means to be an amazing leader. You lead with equity and social justice at the forefront of every decision, and you advocate for all students and staff members each and every day without compromise. You are a champion for ensuring that every student is challenged, included, and provided the necessary resources to thrive. You taught me that all barriers can be removed to support staff and students when thought mindfully. In collaboration with teachers, students, parents, and administrators, I've observed you positively impact all areas of the high school. We would need all night for me to name them, but here are a few. Implementing a new schedule that allows for purposeful weekly collaboration. Giving students time with their teachers one-to-one to engage in professional learning time. Building a robust, multi-tiered system of support in reading and math. Revamping our curriculum adoption process. Helping to build safety and security protocols. My first year, every day, I would leave work between 6 and 8 p.m., and all the doors would be unlocked. And Shayla and I would be the only two people in the building sometimes, and I would be like, can we please lock the doors? Implementing services for students with English language learner needs, and building an inclusive school community where all students have access and learn in the general education setting. These are just a few. Thank you, Shayla, for your mentorship, leadership, and advocacy. You truly are a transformational leader who leads with your heart and makes a difference each and every day. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to partner, collaborate, and learn from you these past 5 years. I will miss you so much, but know you've left a lasting impact on so many, including me. Wishing you much success and happiness in your new position in Naperville. Love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
Our next caller will be Michaeline.
Do I really have a presentation after this?
Yes. We're
Michaeline, you are on with the board.
Hi, my name is Michaeline Tomek, and I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. Holland for the past 6 years. She's the kind of leader that challenges, supports, cares, loves, values, and respects everyone. She's extremely hardworking and pushes the limits, always striving for excellence. Dr. Holland has created a culture for learning within every aspect of our school. I love how she always manages to create community in all situations. Whether it's having a dance party and faculty meetings, hosting the holiday tea, dressing up in holiday PJs, conducting the orchestra, or cheering on teams from the student section or sidelines, Dr. Holland has embraced and loved our students, families, and staff the entire time she has been our principal. She has been a dynamic leader and will be missed. Personally, Shayla has become a great friend. Actually, we consider her family. I say family because Shayla means so much to each member of the Tomek household. Josie will miss the late night popcorn visits, and we will remember all the laughter and heartfelt conversations. Thank you for being a part of our lives. We are so excited for this next chapter in your life, and we'll be right there cheering you on. Love you, Shayla. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, Michaeline.
Our next caller will be Will. Will, you are on with the board.
All right. For the last few years, I've served in elected student government positions where part of my job is to go meet with the administration when I don't think a certain action or policy is in the best interest of students. And I must say, Dr. Holland has made my job easy. Her work is so airtight and so rooted in care for us students that it's hard for me to point to too many times where I had to address something with her. She reached out to me much more, and I think that's one of the greatest testimonies to her service that I could make. Another thing I have to note is that she's really funny. Every time I've been in a meeting or something with her, she cracks a joke and it just catches me off guard. Finally, not finally, I guess, I want to add that the first time I ever heard about Dr. Holland was because of perhaps what I would consider to be the dumbest controversy of all time. I don't even really want to dignify it by calling it a controversy. It was when I was in 8th grade and Dr. Holland released music because she was passionate about it, and I have great respect for that. A couple of concerned community members made a lot of noise about it, but to be honest, most every student I know, and I want her to know this, thought it was fun, and it was great to see our principal expressing herself through art. Something that we should be encouraged to do. And I have to be honest, the music's pretty good. I bet I could still recite a verse from Love Chapter to this day. She brought that same passion to things like the Scout All Out 5K fundraiser, which she spearheaded. She was such a great way to get the community active that I hope will continue for years in the future. It was so great to see her bring energy and fun to the talent show and pep rallies. And although she couldn't be everywhere, she had a hand in every experience that made students feel welcome and comfortable every day in a remarkable school culture that she helped to cultivate. None of that was easy, but I never doubted she could get it done, notably because it seems like her car is the last one on the lot every day. I wrote an article for the Forest Scout when Superintendent Simic announced that he was leaving, and I had a wonderful interview with Dr. Holland where she spoke about the close personal relationship that they had, and it was super emotional, and it made me have great respect for the respect that she had for other leaders like her, and it showed me the kind of coworker and leader that she was. And I brought that up with Mr. Simic. He really valued their connection, and I just thought that was just wonderful. Anyway, all that to say, that Dr. Holland has been a remarkably competent, caring, passionate, and lively steward of our school, and I thank her from the bottom of my heart for being such an important part of my wonderful high school experience. I wish you all the best in your next chapter.
Thank you, Will. Sorry, Shayla.
Our next caller will be Tom. Tom, you are on with the board.
Good evening to Superintendent Collins, Principal Holland, and the Board of Education for District 115. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm sure your executive session was quite full of interesting topics, and I'll try to keep this brief as I've been editing, not to be too repetitive. Having recently completed my 4 years on the board and interacting with Shayla over the last 6 years, tonight marks a very bittersweet moment for me, as I firmly believe our district is losing one of our brightest stars. I had the distinct pleasure of observing and interacting with Shayla, particularly through the Education Committee, and I continue to be amazed by her internal fortitude, as it is beyond belief. As referenced briefly by other people, the grace she exhibited and exhibits during challenging times and controversies should inspire and provide all of us with an example of how to maintain one's best self at all times. I've never before met a person who is so committed and cares so deeply about every student and every child to ensure that they get the best possible education and experience in their lives. Her passion and ability to meet and overcome any and all challenges that impede this path and her drive is amazing. And I continue to be in awe of her inexhaustible energy and wisdom and her drive to make all of us, from the students through the parents, the faculty, the administration, to always deliver our best work at all times. And that attribute hopefully will be able to be replaced and will not be missed. I always knew that our district was incredibly fortunate to have her spend time here as our principal, but also knew that this would not. It's unfortunate that we often rely on history and times like this to recognize great moments that we've experienced in the present. Shayla, thank you for those great moments. From the bottom of my heart, our students, our community, from my family, and particularly from myself, thank you. We wish you the best of luck going forward. Know that you'll always have a home here in District 115. We so look forward to the future that is in store for you, and best of luck.
Thank you, Tom.
Our next caller will be Beth. Beth, you are on with the board.
Hi, I'm Beth Pearson, president of the APT and the mom of a current junior and a recent graduate of Lake Forest High School. Thank you to the Board of Education for allowing me the opportunity to share my appreciation for Dr. Shayla Holland. On behalf of the APT board, I want to acknowledge how much we have valued our partnership with Dr. Holland over the past 6 years. Your leadership has been transformational for our community, and your commitment to making every child at Lake Forest High School feel safe and successful has made an enormous positive impact. The love that you have for our students and the joy that you bring to your interactions with them was exemplified this past weekend at prom, where you hit the dance floor in the DJ room towards the end of the night, much to the delight of the kids who danced alongside you. Personally, the opportunity to work with and get to know you, especially during this past challenging year, has been an experience that I will always cherish. I have learned so much from you, as have my kids. You will be terribly missed. We are so lucky that you have shared your courage, your compassion, your dedication, your gifts, and your love with us in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. We wish you all the best as you embark on your next adventure. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Our next caller will be Ashley. Ashley, you are on with the board.
Thank you. Hi, Shayla. So it's been hard to figure out how to limit this to just a few things. Dr. Holland started one of our first one-on-one meetings asking me about where I wanted to be in 5 years and what kinds of things did I do to make sure I was taking care of my spirit. I didn't know it at the time, but this would continue to be a constant theme for the way she engages with faculty and staff, and especially the students. She's worked to ensure we're always considering the whole student. She speaks openly about bringing everyone to the table and making sure all perspectives are shared and given equal space. She's worked to build a connection for all students and for them to feel that they are valued members of the LFHS community, every last one of them. It's through these actions that she shows how she cares where they will be in college, just everything about their time afterwards. And she checks in and says how they can and should engage with others, and that when they come back, she's telling them they all bring value to our spaces and that this is the community we're building and sharing. Similarly, she continually reminds us of what's important by planning events that bring us together. I know Michaeline mentioned that she sets aside time where faculty and staff can share a meal or a Friday treat to ensure we're taking time to connect and recharge. She regularly reminds students that they need to take time for themselves and to engage in things that mean something. They should explore their interests and see where it takes them. She created the Scout All Out 5K, as Will said, as a way to not only bring the school together, but to also bring the community together. It's into a space that's all about joy and supporting one another.
She regularly thinks about every single person in the building and every single person outside of it and how we can constantly strengthen one another. Shayla's been giving us all the space and the outlets we need to care for the spirit of our school. Shayla, I cannot wait to see what you will be doing in 5 years. And don't forget to continue taking care of your spirit. Love you, girl.
Thank you.
Our next caller will be Mary Beth.
Okay.
Mary Beth, you are on with the board.
Hi, this is Mary Beth Nabor, and Shayla, I just wanted to say that I've been at the high school for 27 years, and I've never met a more dedicated educator. You just so understand that we as educators have a profound impact on the lives of our students, and you work so tirelessly and passionately with that urgency, knowing what this realization demands. Your leadership has renewed my own belief that we need to continue to work and improve until we meet the needs of every child. You model good teaching and positive interactions with students. Of course, students love you, and you can tell a great educator when you see that person light up. And when anybody sees you work with students, you just see that beautiful interaction and you bring joy to the classroom. I'm so honored that you were able to come on some field trips with me, that you were able to come to my class and work with me to help some struggling students, that you built eco columns with us, and in fact, that you got a little pet out of it. So if you've been to Shayla's office, you may have seen Biscuits, the little aquatic frog in her office. You've pampered the teachers with Southern barbecue, with your holiday teas, but you've also helped us do the hard work on equity and access, and you've done it with such patience and grace. I really enjoyed the class that you did on America to Me, taking courageous conversations. You've made us all really look hard at ourselves as educators and try to grow, and we all have, around whether we're best serving all students. You've really transformed me as an educator, and you've transformed Lake Forest High School. You are really an extraordinary leader. I will miss you. Dedication and leadership. I'm better in so many ways for having known you and worked with you. And I'm sorry to see you go, Sheila. I love you.
Thank you.
Our next caller will be Mike. Mike, you are on with the board.
Hi, Shayla. It's Mike. As I reflect on the 6 years that you had in Lake Forest, the first thing that comes to mind is how many young women and students now see leadership as possible because of you and all of your work. And I don't think that anybody can know or even estimate how many students that would be. I also think of a new book that is now in that field. It makes me think also of the treatment that you received when you first got here that I would call vicious and cruel. That was prior to your arrival. And the whole town is now a Shayla fan because of your relentless work for the children of the community, about whom you cared unequivocally and individually so passionately. But the lesson for everyone in town is that what you permit, you promote, and you, or anyone else deserve none of that sort of treatment. And finally, I thank goodness that you came. You're everything that I knew you would be, because that's who you'd been everywhere else you'd ever worked. And for that, I say thank you from me, deeply and personally. And for every student and staff member, every community member, and everyone that came within your orbit, I say thank you. And finally, I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Mike.
Our next caller will be Anne. Anne, you are on with the board.
Evening. This is Ann Whipple. I have lived in Lake Forest for almost 40 years and had the privilege of working beside Dr. Holland at Lake Forest High School prior to my retirement in 2020. Shayla, where do I begin? From the day I met you, I knew you were someone who would challenge our thinking and make our school a better place. I never could have imagined the magnitude of your courage and conviction. Your unwavering commitment to every student is unmatchable. I have watched you make tough decisions, but thoughtfully include all voices and genuinely listen to all concerns in the process, a very rare quality in today's world. Our high school is a better place because of you, and I am honored to call you my friend and will be forever grateful that our paths crossed along the way. You have enriched my life in countless ways. My very best wishes to you, my dear friend, as you embark on this next chapter. You will be missed.
Our next caller will be Patrick.
I have heard such wonderful comments tonight. Dr. Holland, you should be very proud of all the people that you've touched. Thank you for 6 years of total dedication to Lake Forest High School. Thank you for creating a learning environment and collegial atmosphere which allowed an excellent faculty to flourish. Thank you for being the ultimate professional educator in spite of harassment from a vocal minority in this community. And I'm going to read that again to dovetail in with what Mike Simic said. Thank you for being the ultimate professional educator in spite of harassment from a vocal minority in this community. The wonderful legacy you're leaving. I was getting kind of jealous. I don't remember anybody saying those things to me when I left my position when I retired, but continue to just do wonderful things for kids in the community that you're part of. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Our final caller tonight will be Mark. Mark, you are on with the board.
Good evening. My name is Mark Stern. I'm a Lake Forest resident and taxpayer. I too have been choked up by a lot of the things that I've heard this evening. When I heard the board chairman talk about Dr. Holland supporting removal of student limitations and promoting inclusion, I was not sure if she was being ironic or sarcastic. What we have witnessed from this administration is certainly a desire to have all perspectives shared and all voices heard and access, as long as the views being shared are those supporting the supposed progressive education that you want to deliver. There is no doubt that the administration has been dedicated and relentless, and indeed has worked to the very last minute to eliminate the Young Americans for Freedom student organization. Even last Friday, an email was sent forth from Ms. Ashley Malik stating that after a multi-year struggle by these students to form a club, they did not, quote unquote, meet the established criteria for pilot clubs, including holding monthly meetings. Certainly, I would point out that the seven of you are not even apparently afraid of an in-person meeting, in that you've made a specific finding that it is neither practical nor prudent to do so, so we're all on Zoom. Yet these students are being punished for allegedly not holding monthly meetings during a time of COVID. The student handbook says nothing about this. In fact, there's nothing on your website, at least nothing that's publicly available, that indicates that this is a criterion for a student club. For all the talk we've heard about hearing other voices and new perspectives, I am not sure why there has been a multi-year vendetta against a group which has had a great deal of support. I'm hopeful that the new administration will look at this differently. Certainly, as you know, viewpoint-based discrimination by this public institution would be illegal, and I would hope that the new administration would take to heart that there are different perspectives in this community, and they ought to be valued and respected. I don't want to see our students taught that they are either to conform or shut up. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark. Julie, that was our last caller, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I am going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Holland for our fall planning update.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so good evening, everyone. A couple of weeks ago, everyone heard about our plan to open in the fall. Our plans have continued to evolve, and tonight you're going to hear about some of the same things that were discussed, some additional plans, as well as responses to some of the questions that were previously asked. Tonight, you're also going to hear from various members of the leadership team at the high school. We're joined by Tim Burkhalter, Lane Linder, Dr. Patrick Sasson, Dr. Jenny Sturpin, Dr. Alan Waller. I would like to thank the presenters as well as our leadership team and our staff for all of their partnership in providing feedback and insights into this plan. So there's a lot that we can say about many different topics, but without going into the weeds regarding some things that do not pertain to all students, hopefully you'll walk away from this presentation, an explanation of the plan with clarity regarding what to expect for next year. The backdrop of this presentation is really about our fall opening plan as we transition out of a pandemic.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Helen. One of the things that I think is important to really start off with saying when you think about the key areas of learning is I just think it's really, really important that all of us as a school community harness what we've been doing differently in the last 15 months that we know is actually good for or better for students. And some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight are just revelations that we've had as educators about how we can go ahead and help improve learning for students. And there have been those moments despite the difficulty of the pandemic. And so the first thing that I want to mention is that we have made changes to support students. And we've spent the last 15 months pivoting, in so many ways instructionally so that we increase flexibility for teachers and our students so that they can still learn even though the pandemic has happened. And some of those things we're going to continue to do moving forward. We've also had revelations that there's such a range of learners in terms of how they learn and the way they learn, it's going to vary. And so we wanted to continue to find ways that we're going to engage them, not only in 2021, but into 21-22. And so we've probably learned this year more than ever that learning differently doesn't really equate to learning lost, and certainly doesn't necessarily equate to not learning well. And on a later slide, I'm going to share a little bit about some of the examples of how we can continue to try to engage our students in unique ways. Thirdly, it's really, really important that we realize that we're going to continue to provide new ways of teaching and learning as it relates to assessing our students. How are they demonstrating what they've learned? And so a couple of things that have really risen to the surface for us in the last 15 months is that, for starters, while we're always going to value writing, we want students to write critically, we've seen an increase in auditory demonstrations of learning. And those are things that, whether it's presentations, group presentations, cooperative learning, that has been ways that students are able to showcase what they've learned. We also try to incorporate a lot more formal reflection and application of content, skills, and the curriculum that students are learning. That might have been done via Adobe Spark, Schoology, assessments, Canva, Flipgrid. We've used a variety of ways for students to showcase their learning. And again, as I said, we're going to continue to do that leading into 21-22.
Good evening. Another point that we wanted to focus on was that learning and social and emotional well-being are intricately connected. Since last March, we have seen increases in students achieving below their historic academic performances. Students report higher levels of disengagement and motivation than previous years. Our problem-solving teams have reviewed dozens of students weekly who have experienced both academic and emotional difficulties. It is safe to say that, due in large part to the tremendous work of our MTSS coordinator, David Hain, there are more academics and emotional supports for our students than ever before. Tools have been created that give adults access to student achievement data at a level as granular as the number of assignments turned in and the weighted values of those assignments. As a result, we work to create more ways to support students, both academically and emotionally. But there are still many students struggling to find the motivation to engage. Our work is to validate them emotionally and to work with them over time to regain availability to school. I want to thank the counselors, our social workers, and our psychologists for their tireless efforts to support our students and their families. I want to thank all of our teachers and staff who have embedded SEL-related activities into their classes or just provided space for their students to check in. This is going to be critical in the fall. And I also want to thank the staff members who smile at kids behind the masks every day, ask them how they're doing, and visit them in after-school activities and athletic performances. We also know that relationships are pivotal between students and staff. Survey data in the past year suggests that the student-teacher connection is a major influence on student achievement and overall well-being. As the year went on and more students and staff returned, I would frequently overhear students marvel at how good it felt to be in class and around teachers and peers. Teachers frequently commented on how great it felt to feel the energy in their classes, especially in April, when all students could choose to return. We are looking forward to that energy amplifying this fall. Lastly, families must be supported in order to comprehensively support students. We continue to see families struggling due to myriad reasons: family health concerns, loss of employment and income, the impact that remote instruction has had on the household environment, and food insecurity, to name a few. We have and will continue to partner with community resources to provide as much wraparound support as possible, especially as we begin to transition to full in-person this fall. Oftentimes, however, the support families need extends beyond the school day and the school week. Our partnerships have to provide timeliness and flexibility of service to meet each family's particular needs.
Good evening. As we move into the 21-22 school year, and as you've heard multiple times tonight, the commitment to inclusion of every student at Lake Forest High School continues to be a focus area. A sense of belonging, student safety, and attention to the individual needs and backgrounds is essential for our students to thrive and learn. Although we've made significant shifts and changes in modifying our teaching methods, understanding our diverse learners, and increasing student engagement, we still have work to do. Inclusion is not a place where you land, it's a process. We will continue to engage and learn together to ensure that no student is left behind. Additionally, in the 21-22 school year, we will continue to work to examine our current practices, our policies, and our structures that result in disparate outcomes for subgroups of students. We will engage our students, our families, and students and community partners in a decision-making process to begin to tackle and address these barriers. We will continue to provide ongoing professional development around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And most importantly, we'll make sure that our students have the supports that they need to maximize their potential, which we'll talk about throughout the night. All of our departments have taken time to prioritize reconnecting with our students. They spent time this spring thinking, discussing, and planning ways to reconnect with students in the fall, which includes opportunities for enrichment this summer, as well as at the beginning of the school year and embedded throughout the entire school year to improve the social, emotional, and academic development of all of our students. I will now turn it over to Dr. Wallert, who will speak to some of the innovative ways that we will prioritize relationships and learning in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Serpin. I think so much of what we've been doing in the last several months is that evolution or constant moving towards being innovative and multifaceted in terms of what teaching and learning looks like. And so for us, there are things that have worked for students really, really well this year. So whether that's asynchronous and independent or self-paced learning, or using strategies that allow students to pause, to rewind, to review, things like Pear Deck, things like Edpuzzle. We've used a lot of different tech tools and instructional strategies to engage kids, even as Dr. Sasson and Dr. Serpin were alluding to earlier, that maybe they weren't always feeling as engaged. And so we want to continue to be able to capture that. I also want to just briefly mention that I think it's really, really important when you look at all of the professional development and the growth opportunities that our staff has had. We've had our board, we've had our administration, we've had our school community support our efforts to really make sure our teachers and staff are able to do all they can to help our kids. And I think it's especially important to give a shout out right now to our teachers and staff for the tireless work that they've been doing all the way since last March. I still remember being on the 3rd floor the day after we were told we were going to go into quarantine and asking teachers to think differently. And they've had to accelerate their instruction. And they really are on course to be able to continue to do that in 21-22. We've used late starts, institute days, we've had planning days where we focused on certain areas. And some of those have been mentioned, but I want to highlight them again. One of the biggest things going into 21-22 that we want to keep the momentum going with is authentic alternative assessments. And by that I mean allowing kids to demonstrate learning in different ways. Sometimes a paper and pencil test is appropriate. We've also seen many, many ways that kids are able to demonstrate learning this year that we want to continue moving into 21-22. And the other thing to think about is we've also incorporated a great deal, and we're going to see it this week and next week with our end of the year synthesis of learning experiences. Students are formally reflecting, and they're using whatever content, concepts, and skills they're learning to formally reflect and apply and synthesize. And we want to be able to continue to not just have it be demonstrating learning of content, but the application of that content. As Dr. Sasson alluded to, we're going to continue to value SEL and well-being as things that we can do and incorporate instructionally into our classroom. I just want to share briefly an example with you. I heard a great experience the other day of a teacher who partnered with an instructional coach to help freshmen deal with anxiety related to assessments. That's good for all kids. Students get nervous taking an assessment, having to demonstrate what they know or synthesize. And here we had an instructional coach partner with a team of teachers to help kids have coping mechanisms to deal with that. I also think it's important to just think about how we're going to continue to digitize our curriculum, how we're going to think about organization, communication, digital workflow, what assessments look like, and some of the different tools that we're able to use. There are so many people, whether it's our instructional directors within our department, our ed techs, and all of our teachers and staff who are continuing to think differently about what teaching and learning can look like. And I feel like we're going to maintain that momentum leading into 21-22.
Thank you. So we're excited to welcome students back to campus in the fall. In-person learning has been an important part of our trajectory as a district, as we have sought ways to continue to reconnect students to the place and the people that they love. Having a mode of learning that is prioritized and expected helps us establish more continuity with learning, planning instruction for students, supporting students, and also engaging students as we work to provide opportunities for students to build, create, and apply their knowledge. We are also excited about the opportunity to take what we've learned about our students' responses to virtual learning and varied ways of learning, and incorporate best practices regarding virtual and blended learning into our way of engaging students moving forward. Having a year filled with many starts and stops to in-person learning prevents students and our staff from getting into a rhythm of learning, establishing routines, building relationships, and truly creating a community of learners. So again, this level of clarity is helpful for us. We will be reinstituting our hybrid schedule. When this schedule was created and adopted in 2015 for implementation in 2016, it was selected because of what it provides. It created an additional period for students to have a study hall or to take one of our elective classes during the day. That was done by embedding lunch into the schedule. We wanted students to have opportunities to complete work or explore our course offerings. It provides for various instructional minutes for classes, providing an opportunity for teachers to engage students in different types of learning. Our block days were created to provide time for students to create and explore in their classes and to apply learning through interactive project-based learning. The schedule builds in personalized learning time, also known as PLT, one of our tiered supports open to all students where they can access support from their teachers. It builds in weekly faculty collaboration. This is time used for faculty and staff to learn and to grow. And we know one of the biggest levers to student growth is professional development for staff. We have 2 days where students can opt to sleep a little later than usual, but the schedule maximizes instructional time. The schedule committee consists of faculty representatives from across departments and administrators. Each change to the schedule requires the committee to reconvene and agree to the change. During our time navigating the pandemic, we changed our start time to 9 a.m. Similar to when the schedule was first created, we revisited research regarding sleep patterns for teenagers and know that many benefit from a later start to the day. Provisions made by the state to decrease instructional time during the pandemic made this decrease a little less of a challenge than before. When our hybrid schedule was created, and also this pertains to next year, we are expected to have 6-hour instructional days. We landed at 2 late start days as a compromise rather than all days being a late start. Because of the time expectations for instruction, our 3 scout days affords us longer instructional days. We are able to bank those minutes and have 2 late start days on Wednesday and Thursday. This was all vetted through our Regional Office of Education. Also, we are challenged by the schedules of students participating in extracurricular activities. Starting later every day would mean that we would need to end the day later as well. After school activities would need to be pushed back and out of alignment with competing or participating with other schools. There's a domino effect to every decision. And so I'm just explaining this was part of the discussion and has been a part of our ongoing discussions, especially when we're asked about the start time to the day. Our hybrid schedule was created after much thought and consideration went to all facets of the schedule with feedback from all stakeholder groups in the school community at the time. There are gives and takes, but we believe it is still a great model to support teaching and learning.
So I'm going to give a brief overview of 2 options when it comes to the setup of our building. Option 1 relies on some of the IDPH Lake County Health Department safety mitigation measures being eased in the fall. It gives us more latitude in instructional spaces to maximize more capacity while still maintaining safety. In April, we went from approximately 375 students in the building on a daily basis and desks in instructional spaces at 6 feet to approximately 1,150 students each day and desks at approximately 3 feet in instructional spaces. It did not return us, while the moving to 3 feet increased our room capacities, it did not return us to full capacity in our rooms. Returning to full in-person enrollment in the fall will require further easing of space limits and or continued creative use of all of the spaces within the building. As it relates to instructional spaces, our first option relies on the possibility that space restrictions for desks in instructional spaces will be moved to less than 3 feet, as close to normal as years past as possible. That allows us to increase our desk capacity in all of our rooms while still maintaining safety spaces for within the instructional space for our teachers and staff. It allows us to find creative ways to set up support desks and tables in pods such that while we are moving closer to normal, there are still opportunities to structure classrooms in as safe a manner as possible. We plan on maintaining the classroom technology that we created and set up this year that allowed us to utilize the hybrid model. We know that it is highly possible that certainly we will have students that will apply for the remote learning based on the criteria that ISB has put forth. We also know that it's possible that through extracurricular activities and other activities, some students may be on quarantine. And while we've seen that lessen to a great degree, that possibility remains in the fall. So we're going to need to be able to remain nimble in terms of providing in-person and remote instruction as the fall progresses. So our expectation would be those classroom technologies would remain. The opportunity to know the in-person population over the summer, to have a solid understanding of what students would be given approval for remote, allows us to be somewhat strategic in how we place students in classrooms that would then therefore allow us to minimize or limit the amount of actual hybrid classrooms we need to use. In terms of our lunchrooms, we are assuming at this point we'll be asked to maintain 6 feet, given that mask mandates are possibly going to be in place, and when masks are removed, the 6 foot expectation is in place. We are going to continue to use the student cafeteria, the grind, commons, lower commons. We are looking at, based on study hall usages, utilizing the competition gym during lunch periods, as well as the current outdoor eating spaces and the tents. And I'll touch on study halls in a moment as way of explaining the potential use of the competition gym for lunches. Also by way of easing the population in the building during lunch periods where we are at our most stretched, we will be revisiting the possibility of utilizing senior lunch privileges as a means of alleviating some of the population in the building and also returning something to our seniors that they so richly deserve. In terms of levering creative spaces, I mentioned study halls. Right now, study halls occupy multiple classrooms and spaces within the building. If we are going to be looking at needing every instructional space classroom for that purpose, it makes sense to move all study halls into a large common area that can be supervised with multiple staff. The library has capacity at 3 feet. It's currently spaced at 6 feet because students are able to eat there during lunch periods. If we did away with that, collapse study halls into that space, that opens up more classroom space for instructional utilization, which is why we are looking at the idea of the competition gym becoming a greater lunch space during the lunch periods. Continuing to look at the RMA and the little theater as potentially appropriate for study hall spaces off periods that they're being utilized instructionally by other classrooms. And then our resource centers will continue to offer both an in-person and a virtual format. You can move to the next slide, please. Option 2 says 3 feet is the closest. It's going to continue to be the closest we can arrange desks and rooms. With almost all of our students returning for in-person instruction this fall, the 3-foot requirement will mean there will be a potential need for splitting some classrooms up into 2 rooms. So while in terms of the classroom technology being maintained and maintaining instructional space for teachers and staff, if we have to maintain 3-foot distance in terms of our setups of the instructional spaces, and all of or virtually all of our student population will be returning, we are going to need to not only do a capacity inventory of our classrooms, as well as very thoughtful room assignments to minimize to minimize outflow into other more non-traditional spaces for instruction. So as we look at that 4th bullet point, hiring additional staff to supervise overflow spaces, right now where we are is we are assuming, and we'll know better once our capacity inventory is done, that we may have classrooms that simply exceed capacity based on the student population. Right now, many of our classrooms are able to accommodate between 15 and 20 desks in a room, as that has been helpful and useful as our students have returned. And at this point, we are not seeing 1,150 students on a daily basis. So we're able to handle that in rooms. As our full or close to full student population returns in the fall, we believe this is going to stretch us. And so we are considering utilizing the classroom technology setups to help this, where classroom population exceeds the capacity limits, splitting the class into 2 rooms, utilizing an existing or additional instructional supervisor to provide supervision and access to the Google Meet while the teacher teaches in the other classroom. This can be flipped. The teacher can float between classrooms. We can get very creative in terms of how that looks, but that's why we need more instructional spaces, and hence the study halls going into a large common area. Lunch doesn't change. It assumes the 6 feet. It assumes utilizing any creative and existing spaces that we're currently or planning on utilizing next year. It also includes the revisiting senior lunch privileges to give us a little bit more space and give students that privilege. And in terms of the utilizing the bigger spaces, the RMA and little theater will continue to be options when needed. They're not necessarily the best as it pertains to students sitting in theater seats without something to rest their books or their Chromebook on. So we're looking at potentially the opportunity to be creative there, but also that our resource centers will, in addition to our EF tutoring, our peer tutoring, all of those supports that we offer will remain both in person and virtual.
So it's hard to believe that during a pandemic, we actually saw an increase in participation in all of our clubs and activities. And we believe, and part of the feedback that we've received from students is some of the obstacles have been removed, like transportation or trying to figure out after school schedules. We had a lot of students trying out different clubs and activities, and we're grateful that our sponsors held regular meetings across our clubs and activities. So we plan on offering them in person, but also are looking at which ones we can also offer in a virtual setting as well. We don't want to lose the connections that many students have started to make with our clubs and activities. So we plan also to continue our outreach to connect our freshmen with our school experiences and students who have not yet connected. We monitor and track the connections that students are making across all of our extracurricular activities, and we still have a targeted focus on freshmen and students who have not yet connected. During the school day, we plan to offer all of the components of our Career Connections programming, maintaining some of our virtual shifts. We've had good participation in that as well. Our Career Connections program includes open doors, professional panels, career fairs, our career fair, summer internship opportunities, and also classroom speakers. We try to align professionals in a variety of fields with some of our courses so students can hear real life experiences, professionals in the field as they're exploring a variety of areas across our departments. Many of our clubs and activities also use the lunch periods to highlight and showcase their clubs. We'll continue to use these opportunities to build fun and interactive experiences for our students during the lunch periods. And now I'm going to pass it to Tim Burkhalter, our athletic director.
Thanks, Shayla. It's hard to believe that just 4 or 5 months ago, we weren't sure if we were going to have athletics as we were on pause, and we're excited to be completing the balance of our 2021 high school sports in the next 3 weeks, many which are culminating in some form of state series competition for our student athletes. We're really excited about that for our kids, and we know that that gives them something very much that they look forward to each day. We plan to keep things rolling by offering high school camps for our incoming freshmen through rising seniors in a variety of sports during June and the end of July. In addition, there'll be some opportunities for our 5th through 8th grade future Scouts campers offered in sports such as boys and girls basketball, as well as girls field hockey, volleyball, and lacrosse this summer. All information regarding summer camps can be found by going to the athletic homepage and clicking on the Summer Athletics Camp tab on the left-hand side, or by clicking on the summer camp links on the athletic page. As we look forward to next year, all information points to IHSA sports being back in their traditional seasons for the 21-22 school year. We plan to follow the IHSA fall sports calendar that begins for our student athletes no earlier than Monday, August 9th. Typically, our varsity sports start on that Monday, and some of our lower levels, JV and fresh soft, might start a little bit later that week. For those of you planning summer vacations, there will be no LFHS summer camps or activities permitted between July 30th and August 8th. So there's kind of a quiet period after summer camps end and before fall athletics begin on August 9th. As far as safety mitigations, we currently follow the guidance of the all sports policy provided to us by the Illinois Department of Public Health and the Illinois State Board of Education. This guidance will drive all mask wearing and social distancing requirements for our summer camps, just as it has for our high school programming throughout this year. Now, we are hearing that there might be some changes to guidance in the coming days, perhaps early this next month. We'll continue to monitor that, and we will provide the most current version on our athletic homepage. Please continue to check there for the latest updates. In addition, we'll continue to follow all risk mitigation processes with daily health screeners and the like as we transition from the end of spring here into summer camps and into the fall. So looking forward to being able to offer athletic opportunities for the student athletes at Lake Forest High School. And I have been incredibly proud to partner with Ashley Malik and the Student Activities Department and reach our goal of a 90% participation rate in activities and extracurriculars at Lake Forest High School. Throwing it back to you, Shayla.
Just briefly, I know this has been discussed, but remote learning, we are shifting away from our use of remote learning and will only utilize it for identified students. We have issued a preliminary survey to families. It's due tomorrow, and we plan to support remote learners in our current virtual classroom model when that is warranted. The state has shifted and we have shifted as well. And right now, we have less than 3 families who have identified this as a need. And Lane Linder is going to talk to us some about our health and safety mitigation efforts.
Good evening, everyone. The big word about our health and safety mitigation efforts really is the future is unknown. We continue to maintain our practices that we've had all year long, and that's been supported by the governor's recent executive order, in spite of the fact that some of the mask mitigations and social distancing rules were relaxed. They were not relaxed for schools. He cited the CDC's operational guidance for K-12 schools, and in that guidance, the CDC recommended that all schools continue to follow the multi-layered operational approach, which included universal mask wearing and the social distancing. In terms of looking forward to where we're going to be in the fall, one of the positions that we've been discussing for some time and are looking for a commitment for is a health and safety mitigation coordinator. When we look at the need for that position, we have to look at the fall and what some of the forecasts are for the fall. In terms of behavioral mitigations, we already know that there's likely to be a reduced or elimination of things like social distancing, possibly mask wearing. What's unknown will be the commitment to continued contact tracing and self-certification health screening. If those continue, we'll need assistance in maintaining those approaches. But we also have to look at the science behind mitigations. Vaccination, for instance, we've all heard the term herd immunity. I know that the goal is to have 80 to 85% of the population immune for us to have herd immunity, and that is done in combination of vaccination as well as antibodies from prior COVID infections. Currently, we're looking at about 39% of the population in the state of Illinois is vaccinated. And even if we look at what is considered a standard 30% hesitancy rate, if we get 100% of the people vaccinated who want to be vaccinated, we'd only be looking at about 70% of the population, which is below the recommendation for herd immunity. They're also looking at the fact that the impact of these reduced behavioral mitigations might have because with the reduced mask wearing, for people who are fully vaccinated, they're seeing that some people who are unvaccinated are removing their masks. That's created concern for potential fall or a winter surge. That, in addition to the potential for variants of concern spreading back into the U.S. from places that are seeing a surge right now. And we also have to look at testing as one of the science mitigations. And our plan at this point calls for no mandatory testing in the fall. What we may move towards is symptomatic testing for students and staff who are in the building and experience COVID-like symptoms. We have to look at whether or not we need to test them at the school to determine whether or not we need to take any mitigation steps immediately in the building. So all of those things really are unknowns. And so we're looking for the assistance of a health and safety mitigation coordinator to not only support the health services department as well as the safety and security department with our existing plans, but also to respond to a possible surge if one were to happen, and to continue to liaison with the health department and the board to ensure best practices are being followed in all areas, because we know that the guidance can shift, and we need to make sure that we are in line with the prevailing guidance that we are operating under.
So some of what I'm going to talk about briefly, the team's going to talk about, you just heard from Lane. But in thinking about the year, navigating this past year, throughout the pandemic, we have increased our building-wide supports and services. While reducing some of our additions, we plan to maintain some of the staff members that were hired for another year. And again, this is a temporary type of a structure. As we have to support students in different ways, there's still a need to provide some of the structures and supports necessary for this upcoming school year. There are some areas that have been identified as additional needs going into the school year. You'll see those on the left. These have been identified in order to help us effectively address the social, emotional, and health needs of our students and to maintain a safe learning environment. The pandemic has exacerbated some of the areas of needs that have continuously existed at our high school. The additions speak to positions that can help us get over the hump, a more leveled ground of managing the needs of our students. While only requesting these positions for a year, I do want to mention, and it will be discussed, the family interventionist position is one that may need to carry over beyond this year based on the uncertainty of how long it may take for us to return to more manageable conditions. On the other hand, the health and safety mitigation coordinator is definitely a part-time contextual, context-specific position that we do not imagine going beyond this year. Patrick, Jenny, and Lane, possibly, I know he spoke about this already, will speak to these positions.
Good evening. As Dr. Howland and Dr. Sampson previously mentioned, the pandemic has really exacerbated the stress and anxiety for our students and our families. We know that responsive relationships and strong connections are key and are protective factors to help improve emotional well-being. We've had a significant number of students this year who have really struggled or have not been in the building at all for over 18 months and are very anxious about returning. The family interventionist would provide intensive wraparound services for identified students and families, those that are not progressing or making goals despite the current interventions that we have. And the family interventionist would provide in-home supports, such as advocacy, developing positive support plans with families, facilitating parent counseling at home, role modeling strategies in order to help build bridges to school, helping families navigate crises, as well as develop new behavioral patterns that improve the family's functioning. It's really important that we find opportunities to engage our students, increase attendance, and reduce family stressors from some of the things that Patrick previously mentioned, such as loss of employment, food insecurity, medical needs, and mental health, as well as the trauma that's been caused by COVID. The family interventionist, again, would provide an integrated approach to support students and their families and help to leverage community resources to help students with a path forward during this time. This is a necessary step to support our inclusive practices and improve outcomes for our most struggling students and families at this time. We really want to provide these supports in order to reduce the number of hospitalizations and increase time in school. So this is a critical position for us as we move forward next school year. I don't know, Lane, if you want to add anything else about the health and safety mitigation coordinator.
I talked in the previous slide about the fact that a lot of the mitigations, some of them may be reduced or eliminated, but some of them are unknown about what school's going to look like in fall. The addition of a health and safety mitigation coordinator will not only ensure that we are following and continuing with our mitigation protocols, but also it allows me to get back to some of the demands on my safety and security position between conducting safety drills and all of the other plans that we have going forward to continue with our safety efforts in the building. And with a return to full in-person learning, I will be able to return my focus on those things as well.
So we're going to shift some in terms of just talking about some of the opening expenses. You're going to see on this slide that we have our staffing costs as well as equipment and supply costs. And I'm just going to go through, even though we've talked some about the staffing, just to cover some of a few points regarding the equipment and supplies. You'll see something like a gym floor covering on here. We're planning to use the competition gym for lunch and for study halls, swapping out the use of our library for lunch. We plan on using our library for study halls. The library is a more appropriate place for that. The competition gym will need to cover the floors, and so you're seeing expenses like that. We also have made that shift because of we'll need to have some time during the day to tear down the gym and get it prepared for after school activities. So part of the swap was strategic as well, in thinking about the many different areas of the building. We are ordering 175 of our testing tables and chairs. If any of you have been in the building, you'll notice that our desks are currently in our student cafeteria. We need to shift our desks out of those spaces and back into the classrooms. So between the lunchroom as well as our competition gym, that's the tables and chairs. You'll see some instructional desktops, as we talked about, utilizing different spaces to create more comfortable learning or engagement spaces for students. Overflow spaces, that's what the desktops are for. As of now, our tents are our biggest expense, and we have been costing out the renting tents as well as purchasing them. Part of this is a 9-month rental. And so right now we have a tent covering our patio, and we also have a large tent in the back. Thinking about a 9-month rental, we'll have to include heat. And so the lower end of this expense would be $200,000. But on here, I have $300,000 just as a buffer in the case that we see that we're going to need more as we continue to go through our building-wide utilization plan. I know Jordan is working through some of the engineering components connected to Wi-Fi upgrades, and that cost will be forthcoming. In a brief conversation earlier, he mentioned that it might be around $50,000. And so the costs haven't been firmed up totally. That's why that's not there. So the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund was established under the CARES Act to address the impact of COVID-19 across school districts. Like most of our grants, our funding is based on formulas generated by Title I allocations. And Title I funds are granted based on vulnerable students, students often labeled as at risk, regarding a variety of factors that may impede learning. So ESSER is the nickname. ESSER funds have been appropriately applied to cover our COVID-19 related expenses this year. You'll see that we've had 2 allocations so far, ESSER 1 and ESSER 2. I'll just explain what you're seeing. So for ESSER 1, our allocation was $65,000, 685 cents, but you'll see that 38,000 of that money was really what we were able to spend. All federal grants also support local private and parochial schools, private schools for the most part. And so you'll see 27,000 of the funds went to Woodlands Academy as well. So that's why you're not seeing the total amount of money used for spending. Our areas of focus in which the 38,000 went to: instructional software, tech devices, as well as purchasing PPE. For ESSER 2, you'll see how we spent the money as well on internal and external wireless access points for students and staff, our tents, safety equipment, and PPE. ESSER 3 is not released until July 1st. It's not available until July 1st, and you can see the amount that we're receiving. One of the things that is written into the ESSER 3 grant, though, is a requirement for all districts to spend 20% on addressing learning loss. So you'll see the 99,000 listed there. Some of the areas that we've already identified in terms of the use of these funds, some of the instructional equipment and supplies that you saw on the previous slides, PPE and tents, as well as the possibility of funding some of the special positions that we mentioned. Because this is related to COVID-19, it's appropriate to use the ESSER funds towards some of the temporary needs that we have as a district. And this slide is just created to show you how the ESSER funds will make a dent into the district's spending. Of course, all of this is open for discussion, but what you've heard today is just a plan of what we need in order to open up school and facilitate learning, what would be helpful, and also our plan on how we plan to use our ESSER funds.
So as we wrap up, you've heard so many ideas about how we hope to proceed into the 21-22 school year. And obviously the last 15 months has proven to be very unpredictable. And we've pivoted in so many ways, and it's because of so many stakeholders that are here tonight and within our greater community. We probably recognize the fact that while we predict into 21-22, all of these plans may evolve and may take different pathways or journeys depending on how things unfold over the next 3 to 4 months. And knowing that, it's important to understand that the district is going to plan and think about our students and our staff and our community based on the evidence and the information we get from the IDPH, ISB, and LCHD. And as a result of that, we always want to make sure that everyone thinks about the fact that we are going to do what we need to do in the best interest of our students, so that learning occurs, so that engagement and support occurs, and that we are really taking into consideration the well-being of our students and our staff. And our goal in the next 3.5 months is to continue to be a district that prospers when it comes to communication with the greater school community to make sure that all of our students are supported.
So I just realized that I misquoted some of the expenses. They're around the same. Sorry, my eyes are blurry from all the crying earlier. In terms of our communication plan, we've had our May 10th District 115 regular meeting. We've also had an all-staff meeting to start talking through the plans with our staff. We have tonight, and our hope is to this week communicate the plan to families and staff. Part of our goal and part of the request to have this special meeting was to ensure that everyone's leaving at the end of the year with an understanding of what to expect in the fall, of course, with more details to come. And we do have one more board meeting on June 14th, which is a District 115 regular Board of Ed meeting. So the team here at the high school continues to work through our planning and preparation for the fall. With a clear direction, the team can properly partner with the staff to make sure that we are ready to welcome students back and to reconnect them to the special learning community that exists at the high school. Thank you.
Okay, I see a hand up. I think John Noble is the only one with a hand up. Oh, no, and Marcus. So,
Yeah, Marcus was first.
so, okay, and Sally's just went up. So let's go Marcus, then John, then Sally.
So, thank you very much. First of all, Dr. Holland and everybody of the staff, really commend you on this very comprehensive overview and plan going forward and enabling our students to come safely back to school and enjoy the in-person learning, which I think is certainly critical. And I have a number of questions, so I probably list them out, and then if you can maybe go into that. But could you, first of all, put up that staffing cost slide again, please? Because I'm where you have the entire cost listed up. Because I'll wait until it comes
I'm working on it.
Yeah. So maybe I pose my other question to Mr. Linder in the meantime. So the health and safety mitigation coordinator, Mr. Linder, I would request that we ensure that that person has a qualification in infection prevention, so that aspect, it's a the qualification for that, because I think going forward, that's certainly going to continue to be of relevance, if you don't mind. And then I had a question regarding the family interventionists. My understanding from discussions with the administration is that there are inequities when it comes from a performance perspective for some of the subpopulations, and I was wondering if you thinking that this family interventionist could possibly be helpful in addressing some of those inequities going forward as well, if you want to comment on that. And then in regards to the staffing costs, so you mentioned in particularly the instructional supervisor and the health and safety mitigation coordinator as additional new positions. I'm just trying to understand why these other positions which are listed on there are additional costs. Are these positions not existing today, or are they're different positions, or I'm not seeing the picture anymore, so I don't know if you could go back to that cost slide.
Sorry, I'm trying to follow you where you're.
Yeah, no, I just want this slide. Thank you. So you explained to us what the health and safety mitigation coordinator and the family interventionist that those were additional positions. I see the other positions here: safety protocol ambassador, student supervisors. I'm just trying to understand if these are also additional positions, or why are they costed out separately here?
So these are positions that were that we currently have in place that have not always existed, that are, I mean, I can go through each one and name the need that they're addressing right now. So part of what I did in the previous slide is mention what we want to maintain for another year, especially as we've laid out our option 1 and option 2 plans. And then what we know is also needed in addition. Some of these positions listed here, we've gone down in personnel. And so like the student protocol ambassador, we had several of them this year. We know we need one for this upcoming year. So you're seeing reductions even from this current year, but some positions have gone away and some things we know we need based on the instructional model of having students back into the building the way that they are, and an increase in spaces that we're going to have students engaged in, which we have not had before.
So these are positions which are in addition to pre-COVID times. Is that how I have to understand that?
Yes, they've been added within the last year to address our needs.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And anybody want to?
Yeah, so Marcus, I think I understood your family interventionist question. You were asking if that would help with other disparities with academic achievement. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, and particularly some of our, underprivileged groups we have identified through ERCAR and other means.
So we know, in thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs that, meeting safety and food and security and all of those things are really necessary and important before even academic learning can happen. So I do see this role as playing an important piece, although that's not, necessarily where all of the family interventionists will be targeted. I think that every student and family has a different situation. But all of them are receiving multi-tiered systems of support now, either academically or social emotionally, and they continue to struggle. And so these will be very personalized and individualized supports for identified families. Through the core teams, they'd be identified as needing additional supports, really to ensure that they can re-engage in school, connecting them with outside resources and providing that in-the-moment counseling. So a lot of home visits, helping students either get on the bus or just even come into school or access remote learning if that's what they need because of their own medical needs or family medical needs. But just really partnering with those families to build that sense of safety and security and focus on attention. And yes, ultimately, we should see an impact on academic achievement over time. But with some of the stressors and some of the trauma that students have experienced over this last year, as Dr. Holland mentioned, it's going to take time. And so building those relationships with students and families and increasing their safety and security is going to be number one importance. I don't know if Patrick, you want to add anything?
No, I think you really summarized that well. I think this will be a targeted yet triaged approach to truly identify the individual students that are most appropriate for this person to interact with and provide support to. And each family is going to take a highly individualized profile in terms of how the interventionist seeks to provide support. So like I said, that looks way different, way outside the parameters of an 8 to 3 o'clock school day or a Monday through Friday school week. The ability to meet families at their home at the before or after the dinner hour, provide access and supports on the weekends. We want to build in a flexibility of service model with this interventionist to really, as Jenny said, meet these families where they need the supports most. There will be some that just simply need a connection to academic resources within the building, but then there are some who simply are actually going to need time to actually feel comfortable coming back to the building physically. So it'll be to meet a broad range of services that I agree with Jenny. Ultimately, there should be some higher academic outcomes, but to begin with, it's really triaging on what the emotional needs are to begin with.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you. And I was just, the added question there was, I guess, that I wanted to ask if you saw maybe an ongoing need for that for other than COVID-induced anxieties and stress for that family interventionist based on other factors like minority status and so on that you see that could be helpful.
We have utilized family services, family intervention services in the past with pretty significant effect because of how the family ecosystem, if you will, is so delicate and impacts students' availability to be students in our building. And so we have, we believe strongly in the model of family intervention to get to the core of the supports that the family and the student needs. So, we will continue to use either the existing resources or that family interventionist as warranted.
Thank you.
I think, John, you were up next. John Noble.
Right. Two quick ones. Within the health one with the contact tracing and the other stuff that we've had to do has been extensive in regards to this year. If things were to continue and needing that type of depth, is that covered, Lane and Shayla, within that role for the health?
Yes, that is part of the goals of that, and kind of go back to Dr. Schabacher's.
Yep.
It is a health-based position in terms of the initial requirements are somebody with some type of health licensure for that position.
Great. Yeah, I just want to make sure we got everything operationally can be pulled out to that group and that person, just to basically not stress the other folks there if we're going to be able to piggyback. That's great. The other thought was, or the other question I had specifically was on the freshman advisory model, Shayla, that you've been trying to bring forward, and obviously COVID had dearly interrupted some of the paths and visions you had. And I guess if you just could give me a short spiel on where you think that is, what we can maybe accomplish, you think, in the fall towards that end, and then what maybe needs to be either thought of for us in terms of additional FTEs overhead to kind of get to that model, or is there enough as you see dropping into the fall that gets us moving in that direction as aggressively as you would like? So that we're kind of getting to that transition phase to, address a couple of things that Marcus is mentioning, but others in terms of where that social emotional learning model that you were really taking us towards.
Well, COVID definitely changed that, and our schedule change actually supported it in terms of having an experience right before school. I'm going to pass this to Dr. Sasson. He has worked extensively on rethinking our model for this school year, especially with the decision to go back to our previous schedule.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for asking, John. Great question. So as Dr. Holland mentioned, we had a standalone model this year. We utilizing last summer to really start to build a model where we felt we could build in transition supports for our freshman class, as well as curriculum that embedding curriculum that was aligned with the SEL standards, ISB SEL standards, and the CASEL standards around social emotional learning. Give them an opportunity to integrate into the high school as smoothly as possible. We obviously started the year remote. That impacted, I think, the efficacy of, now we had a freshman orientation that was in person in a really safe way, and it had a lot of efficacy, but then we went remote and we had our students in our freshman advisory, once a week remote. Dr. Waller and I had the opportunity to run a freshman advisory. It was like one of the highlights of the year, but to see the kids at 8:15, in pajamas in their bedroom, it was trying to get them activated. I will say, Alan and I, we struggled, but they were such good kids. And with a model that was outside the framework of the day, a vast majority of our freshmen showed up remotely, in person, and engaged in the program. The model was, I believe, very successful. Feedback from students, families, and teachers were far more complimentary, and in fact asking for continuation of it. We felt that we had met the needs of the program by semester's end and returned that time to the students and sleep and whatever they needed. A couple of things we reflected on when we talked about at semester's end how it went were what are the things that really of value. A common freshman experience, an opportunity to have peer mentors within that model so that they were learning from juniors and seniors, an opportunity to touch on executive functioning, social and emotional awareness, where the resources and the people in the building that students need to know and get to know and establish relationships with, as well as mindfulness and self-regulation. As things ramped up in the school year, we kept referring back to some specific strategies for self-regulating and managing your inner functioning, while also holding yourself accountable to the immediate needs and mapping out from an executive functioning standpoint how to accomplish the tasks before you. So with all that being said, we also looked at the things that kind of worked against it, the headwinds that we found. The pandemic was part of it. Part of it was the model that we structured, which was that standalone before school. We felt that we would always be in that way, somehow having to rely on students getting there before their first period. That was the number one thing students said they liked the least about the model. We also were relying on staff to volunteer from a period of time standpoint to be the freshman advisors, if you will, and moving into the summer and feeling that I don't know how many I'd get. That would impact possibly the number of advisors in each freshman advisory, as well as obviously the efficacy and of amplifying the message in the curriculum was another thing. Lastly, and this is not a headwind, this is absolutely the best part of it all, is we realized if we look at the things that we really thought benefited our students, they were already getting some portion of that in their universal freshman experience of Wellness for Life. So many of Wellness for Life's curriculum ties directly into the CASEL standards, ISB-SEL standards. They are peer mentors in the classroom through our TA program. Our sophomore students can take a TA training program, and then as juniors and seniors, be Wellness for Life TAs in the classroom. So every Wellness for Life class has 2 or 3 or 4 students, peers of these freshmen. They go through all of the things curricularly. We checked the boxes, kept saying, yes, there's executive functioning. Yes, there's SEL. Yes, there's getting to know your school. Yes, there's getting to know one another. Yes, there's getting to know the resource centers and the things around. And we felt that in our meetings with Wellness, who have been tremendous partners this spring, that not only could we add some things, but we could amplify what they currently were doing. So we feel really good that this is a streamlined partnership where the freshman advisory curriculum will be embedded where it doesn't exist and amplify what already does exist. And the last thing I would say is that other resource that we have are the Link Crew leaders, the Link Crew program, where students signed up to be Link Crew leaders, where in years past they had done tremendous work around that initial freshman orientation day. Last year, they were the TAs within the freshman advisory, and we didn't want to lose that value added. And also our students liked the idea of being a Link Crew leader and having a year-long connection with the program. So we are, as they will be part of that freshman orientation. We'll look to move them into Wellness for Life classes where we can to partner with the TAs, as well as to develop across quarterly, hopefully quarterly, outside the parameters of the school day, evening activities that they can lead with freshmen. So the freshmen are getting that peer-to-peer connection as much as possible.
Well, thank you, Patrick. That's wonderful. I mean, I've always enjoyed hearing about New Trier's advisory model, and I think what you guys are building is even better than that. And I like the ability of where it's building and where it's going to continue, and really being able to have an advocate for those children all the way through. And I think one of the things that, as I hear, is, teaching these kids, learning to learn. I don't think I ever did a very good job of that. So, creating professional learners for these kids in terms of what they're looking and have the talent to be able to go on and do. And if you'll indulge me, since it is my birthday, I just want to take one moment and thank you, Shayla, and the team. You guys have done such a great job through what is arguably just a ridiculously difficult time. So the sacrifice you all have, and everybody really has made day to day, just in terms of putting the kids first, has meant a tremendous amount to me. I'm going to miss you, Shayla. And I'm sorry my second one won't get to have you, but that's okay. We'll have some other good people, but you're going to be great for a lot of other people, and I really appreciate you being here and making a change and making this place a little bit better, or a lot better. But thank you all, and this has been a really good way to spend my day, listen to all you and the effort you've put together for this plan. So my applaud you all, and thank you very much for this. So appreciate the answers to the questions. Yep.
Thank you, John, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, Sally, you're up.
I have three sort of disjointed questions. So my first one is, with return to full in person, with remote only an option for medical excuse, is that COVID specific, or is it for any students who are medically excused? So the kid who breaks the femur, and or the kid who is in an inpatient facility, that sort of thing. I'm aware that we typically provide different learning options for them, and we typically pay out of pocket for that. So I was curious how that's going to play out in the upcoming year.
So right now it's connected to COVID. Usually if something happens to a student, an injury, we are able to work with the family. We have an injury or any other type of need, depending on what it actually is. We're able to work with families. We have homebound tutoring and a range of other supports. But one of the things that we plan on keeping and that we're able to do now because of the pandemic is to support students who need to be out for other reasons. We've relied heavily on Schoology and other ways to keep students connected. But if a student has to be out because they broke something, they can still log in. Our attendance will still be in place, our attendance expectations, but we are able to reach a larger group of students if there is a need for virtual learning. But the direction of the state is specifically connected to health factors associated with being in person in school, associated with COVID.
Okay, thanks. I remember spending an enormous amount of time talking about tents last summer. And I also recognize that I think it was Lane who said everything changes all the time. So with that in mind, I don't want to necessarily go through the discussions we had then, because you guys have learned a lot by being in the trenches this past year. But two of the things that struck me about the reasons why the board was down on the notion of tents was that the cost, not only in terms of dollars, but also in terms of limited personnel resources to make those tents a viable, qualified learning environment wasn't worth the effort. And I think particularly of the reference here to heating them, I remember also discussions related to wiring them, bathroom facilities, that sort of thing. So my question is, has something changed in relation to that? Are tents in Northern Illinois a better proposition now? Do we have better answers to the reasons why they were frowned on when they were proposed last year? And I guess, are they the answer to option one versus option two? So if we're going to have more students back in person learning, and we have issues perhaps where we have to at least keep distance of 3 feet apart, are tents the difference between being able to accommodate everybody or not?
Are you frozen?
Yeah. Either that or I've rendered you all speechless with the phenomenally important question.
So I'm trying to think of where to go with your question first. There was an enormous expense associated not just with the tents, but a lot of the conversation before was connected to the technology needed outside, what that would look like in terms of the poles, the equipment, the infrastructure, as well as the massive costs. We've shifted our use for the tents. And we have, it's a space, we're using them right now to facilitate lunch. We did go down a path of talking about the possibility of using them for study halls, But part of that, I mean, students connect to the internet during study hall. And so we looked at other large spaces throughout the building. And you'll see we still have the custodians as a part of the list. Part of the reason for that is to take down and set up every day. We realize every time we need something, there is something else that's going to, we're going to have to pay to facilitate those things. And so we have shifted away from using tents for instructional purposes. That's where we were previously. So it hasn't been on the table.
I get it. Okay, that makes sense. And then I know that coming up, we'll be looking at the budget for next year, and this might be a question more for Jen than the building staff, but do we have any early read on what the projected expenses will mean for our fund balance and whether or not we will be looking at budgeting by dipping into our reserve?
So that is probably a question for me, and I'm guessing Shayla doesn't want to jump in. So the answer really is at this point, it's too early. We are, as you know, kind of in the throes of budgeting right now. I can tell you that generally speaking, what we're doing is similar to last year in that we're kind of budgeting and building what a relatively normal school year would look like first. So we want to kind of get those big puzzle pieces in. And then we're going to layer on top these associated costs and with reopening in somewhat of a different manner than we normally would. So we can kind of isolate those as well. I can say that the normal expenses right now so far look pretty good. Staffing, generally speaking, overall, I thought has been pretty tight. The staffing plan that was presented earlier this spring. I can say that I think all of the submissions I've seen so far have been reasonable and all within kind of our tolerance levels. So I would expect that those would be pretty similar to how I have them projected in the 5-year. But the costs that you see here tonight, as you know, have not been included. So those are the things that we will have to layer on, and it is likely, I would anticipate, that we would need to dip into the fund balance. Now, thankfully, the ESSER funds have helped,
yeah,
but they don't quite mitigate the whole thing.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you all.
Okay, are there, Marcus, your hand is up. Is it up?
Yeah, I have
Okay, and then after you, Dave has a hand up too, I see.
Yeah, I have an additional question. So it's a somewhat particular was the access to the bathrooms and based on the spacing there, the reduced utilization of, only can speak for the male side of things, but the urinals and so on, that really created long waiting times during the changeover times or lunch times, and to very unhygienic conditions because, same urinal used by now 4 to 5 times the amount of people. So is there any plans on changing that, or do you know what the requirements are going to go forward, or do we have any ideas on mitigation?
I can address that. We did ask in regards to the spacing in the bathrooms. Initially, when we laid that out at the beginning of the year, conversation was regarding the stalls, as to whether or not the stalls represented any type of acceptable barrier that would preclude the 6-foot spacing. And we were told no, that we essentially had to measure the spacing between the fixtures in the bathroom, and based upon the location of those fixtures, that would determine whether or not people could be properly distanced in those spaces. And with respect to the urinals, like you said, those in many cases don't even meet the 3-foot spacing that is required. So we will again have to rely on where the mitigations are come fall for that, in terms of our ability to kind of open up more of those spaces. But as it stood right now, it was status quo.
Thanks.
Dave, can I jump in front of you because I want to piggyback on Marcus's question? Can I be that rude? Okay, thank you. So Lane, everything I've read lumps schools with airports, train stations, bus terminals. You go to O'Hare Airport in the men's. I haven't been in the men's room, but I don't believe there's that spacing requirement. I can tell you in the ladies' room, the divider is all you get, and that you're right, fixture to fixture is not 6 feet. I thought schools were operating the same way or under the same requirements as transportation facilities.
I think the potential difference there is your likelihood of having 15 minutes of interaction with a person passing in an airport is different than the possibility that meeting somebody in a bathroom could be somebody in one of your classes, and that adds up to a potential cumulative number of 15 minutes of close contact that could occur over that 24-hour period. And so since it was common students in a lot of those spaces, they were a little bit more cognizant of the potential that that interaction might lead to a close contact situation. That's all I can possibly offer in regards to that.
All right, thank you. And Dave, thank you for letting me cut in front of you.
No problem at all. Kind of related to Sally's question on the budgeting. You know, clearly there's lots of uncertainty. We don't know what next year is going to look like yet in terms of guidance. Do we have flexibility on when we have to make some of these decisions? I'm sure they're all a little bit different, but to what extent can we wait until we have guidance on these, and you know, whether it be option 1 or option 2, or do we need to make these decisions, staffing this, really the only ones that would be different between option 1 and 2 and tent costs and those sorts of things? At what point do we need to make the decision on these and actually sign contracts versus just have them in mind?
So I'll jump in just because I've been collecting the invoices and looking at and working with other staff members to talk to the companies. Every district is in a similar, many districts are in a similar situation. So like the tables and chairs, they told us if we don't move quickly on those are going to be gone. The tents are in a similar place because every district is trying to figure some things out. I mean, districts have different setups. Oftentimes they have more space than we have, but for the ones who don't, every vendor we've talked to expresses, they give us a time frame in terms of placing our order, at least putting it on hold. And sometimes that means placing a deposit on some of these things. So we really don't have a lot of time in terms of the equipment aspects of this.
Okay, thanks. It might be good to just have kind of a timeline for some of those, especially the bigger ticket items, to know when those decisions need to be made. And then last question, do we anticipate any ESSER funding in 2021-22 school year? Like a ESSER 4?
I don't know. I'm hoping there's a 4, 5, 6.
I'm with Shayla, but right now we don't have any indication either way. And I have to tell you, they kind of jump up on you. You don't get a lot of advance notice. You're hopeful you start to hear some whisperings, and we certainly didn't expect anything to the extent that we're going to receive for ESSER 3. So I think we're grateful and thankful. And if they want to keep it coming for now, I think we'd be just as appreciative.
Okay, but nothing we can plan for. Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions before we move on? All right, we have one action item on our agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion, and then if you would hold off on seconding the motion, I'm going to read it in between making the motion and the second. So may I have a motion to adopt the outgoing principal resolution?
So
Okay, and Julia, can you share your screen, please? Thank you. our beloved, or saying goodbye to our beloved principal, Shayla Holland, we have a resolution that we would like to present. Whereas Dr. Shayla Holland has faithfully served the students, staff, and families of Lake Forest Community High School 115 as Lake Forest High School principal from 2015 to 2021. Whereas Dr. Holland has been a fearless champion for the inclusion of all students in more accessible general education environments, working to foster a culture means all. Whereas Dr. Holland has created multi-tiered systems of supports to provide for the individual and unique learning needs of all students, resulting in increased learning and growth for more Lake Forest High School students. Whereas Dr. Holland created systems and accountability for the documentation of a guaranteed and viable Lake Forest High School curriculum, ensuring coursework, learning expectations, and targets were mapped and consistently clarified and revised. Believing that through this diligent approach, we would illuminate the path toward greater success for more Lake Forest High School students. Whereas Dr. Holland restructured the alignment of administrative positions to ensure leadership for newly developed instructional systems. You can go ahead, Julia. Thank you. Thank you. Whereas Dr. Holland implemented new services for students with English language learner needs. Whereas Dr. Holland championed greater access to honors and advanced placement courses for all Lake Forest High School students, removing arbitrary barriers and providing opportunities for every student to seek their next level of challenge, doubling the number of Lake Forest High School students taking at least one AP course during her tenure. Whereas Dr. Holland sought seeking to prepare students to successfully engage the larger global community in their future lives. Whereas Dr. Holland encouraged extracurricular opportunities for all Lake Forest High School students that sparked individual curiosity, interest, and creativity, significantly increasing participation and engagement among Lake Forest High School students. Whereas Dr. Holland initiated a collaborative partnership with staff and the greater Lake Forest school community to create the current Scout Block schedule, which has since been modeled by neighboring districts. Whereas Dr. Holland developed enduring partnerships with local parent and civic groups, including LEAD, the community representing our young adults, CROIA, and Lake Forest High School Association of Parents and Teachers, the Lake Forest Foundation, Applause, PALS, and the Lake Forest High School Boosters, cultivating the district's collaboration, support, and relevance among stakeholders and the broader community. Whereas Dr. Holland was awarded the Lake Region Principal of the Year Award by 2021 Illinois Principals Association in conjunction with the Horace Mann Educators Association. Whereas Dr. Holland was named Educational Leader of the Year in 2019 by the University of Illinois Chicago College of Education. Whereas Dr. Holland led Lake Forest High School community during a global pandemic, placing the health, safety, social, emotional, and academic well-being of all school community members at the forefront of her daily decision-making. Whereas Dr. Holland is recognized for her exemplary character, go ahead, Julia. Whereas Dr. Holland is recognized for her exemplary character as a visionary, thoughtful, and compassionate leader who worked day in and day out during her tenure to foster an environment in which all Lake Forest High School students could maximize their full potential. Therefore, Lake Bluff and Knollwood, its deepest appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Shayla Holland for her steadfast and tireless work to advance the quality of education, engagement, and inclusion for all Lake Forest High School students in our communities. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be entered permanently into the minutes of the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education, signed this 24th day of May, 2021.
Thank you.
Oh, I froze. I don't know if someone said second.
Second.
Thank you, John. Julia, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weinbrenner,
Aye.
Dr. Benson,
Aye.
Mr. Noble,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Dr. Schabacher,
Emphatically, aye.
Ms. Davis,
Sadly, aye.
Ms. Zinser,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, I would like to say happy birthday to John Noble, and I owe him an apology because when we were planning this meeting, I told him we would birthday celebrating with your family, but very happy birthday, my friend.
Is it okay if I say something briefly?
Absolutely, and it doesn't have to be brief.
It will be brief. It will be brief. So I do want to thank the faculty, staff, and students for allowing me to serve as principal. Thank you for partnering with me to serve you and also giving me the opportunity to grow and learn while serving as a lead learner. I want to thank Mike Simic for his support over the years and the opportunity to work together. I want to thank the Board of Education and thank the members of the Lake Forest High School leadership team for their relentless pursuit in making Lake Forest High School a great place for all of our learners. This in collaboration with our faculty and staff. I get to work side by side with a committed group of people every single day. We may not agree on everything, we may have different perspectives, but we care about each other. And we're all working towards the same things for our students. I want to thank everyone who has chosen kindness, even when angry or fully unclear about something. Kindness goes a long way and is a reflection of the heart. It's also a choice. So thank you to all of those who have demonstrated kindness during my time here. I actually haven't fully processed my departure. I haven't started thinking about leaving yet. I'm fully immersed. I learned early on in the value of commitment and following through on all of my commitments with full attention. I have stories around that growing up, but it stayed with me to this day. Until then, I'll continue to close out the year with an amazing team and do my best to position the student, staff, and our leadership and new leadership for all of the work ahead. I will always be a cheerleader for Lake Forest High School, so thank you.
Thank you, Shayla, and you will forever be a scout.
Thanks.
Anyone else before we adjourn? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School special board meeting for May 24th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please, Julia?
Mr. Noble,
Aye.
Dr. Schabacher,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Zinser,
Aye.
Mr. Weinbrenner,
Aye.
Dr. Benson,
Aye.
motion carries.
With my very fancy pen gavel, meeting adjourned.